Hey, 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 welcome everybody. It's me, Steve DeGroot here. I am solo today, but look at all the people that have shown up. Welcome to the first webinar for Brivia, and I wanted to welcome you here and just get this started. Get it into the chat. Let us know where you're joining from today. I'm in Winnipeg today. I'm going to throw it in the chat. It's so good. I see people are still showing up. And I'm really excited to be here today because it always inspires me that people that are busy and working on behalf of other people doing really important things are here with us today. So thank you for being here. And also stay tuned if you can. I see someone's from Manitoulin Island. Look at that. Other Winnipeggers are here. North of Winnipeg, Scarborough. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Across Canada, I know there's still people that are going to be showing up. London. Hello, London. And yeah, so thanks for being here. We're here for about 45 minutes or so. We're going to present for about 25 minutes like we usually do. And then we're going to open it up to questions and comments. The thing that I love about all of you here is the questions that you ask, the comments that you make, the chats that happen. So keep chatting to each other, ask each other questions. Today, we're here to talk about the commonalities of many performance management approaches. Okay, so and I want to say a lot of them can be helpful. Some of them can be actually they can hinder our performance, and some of them might even be hurting our employee performance and our ability to perform optimally. And that's what we're here to talk about. So I want you to know that this is an important topic. You already know, you've shown up to be here, so thank you for being here. And I just want to say today is about an honest conversation, right? Gentle, respectful. It really is about rethinking some of the things that are important to us. Motivating and engaging employees to perform is still in, like, engaging them, motivating, still in the top 3 priorities for leaders across all sectors in every single industry, right? And if you've been paying attention, it's not getting any easier. Now, there's lots of hope. Okay, you know me, there's tons of hope. At Brivia, we like to offer strategies and practical solutions. If you're just tuning in now, you might be, oh my gosh, but really motivating and engaging people has become more difficult than ever. We're now contending with things like burnout. We're contending with shortages in staff, and we are contending with moral injury in health and human services. So let's jump into this. I want to suggest, again, ask questions, make comments. I'm going to check the chat. If you have questions that you'd like answered, throw them into the Q&A. Because I'm solo here, I do have Brenda and John online here to help me out a little bit if I need it. But put your questions in the into the question and answer discussion area so that we can get to them. So at Brivia, we totally believe that every leader is concerned with getting to better with their people, especially the ones that they're responsible for, right? And what we're going to do today is talk about, are the things that we're doing, are they helping, are they hindering, and in some cases are they hurting us, right? And as I said, a gentle, honest, respectful conversation, because we need to be honest about the things we need to change. Now, I also want to tell you, I'm gonna prepare you for a little bit of a dip in the presentation. There might be a little bit of guilt, a little bit of shame, maybe some fear. But one of the things that we're going to get to is claim some of the things that we might unintentionally and unfortunately be doing that we can correct, right? And so, but before we get into that, you know that at Brivia, we love to make you the research. You are the research. So we don't need any research for your experience. And we love to talk about great experiences. We've talked about great leadership, great teams, great work environments. What I want you to do now is I want you to think about a time when you were performing in a job or in your work, your absolute best, where you were like, you're doing awesome. Your performance was incredible. I want to see in the chat, right? I want you to put into the chat what that was about. Like, even if it was just for a moment. I have some people that go, it's really hard pressed, Steve, to to think about a time, especially since the pandemic, right? But what I want to hear from you is, I want to hear from you, what were the things that made it so great? So when you think about your greatest performance ever, when you were firing on all cylinders, when you were focused, when you were committed, when you were getting the results that you wanted, what were the things that contributed to that moment? So I want to see it in the chat. I want to see you throw into the chat, what were the common ingredients? And I'm going to share some of the things that we hear from the people that we work. So solid team members. Thank you, Oscar. Throw it in the collaboration. Look at this. Here we go. It's lit up, Leona. Awesome. Jen, engagement, enthusiasm, management support. All right. So keep them going. Keep them going. Honest feedback. I love it. Specificity. Look at this. Enthusiasm, being part of a team, learning, right? Influential. Okay, being influenced and influencing. Autonomy. Thank you, Lucette. So here's the cool thing. Keep it coming. I love that we're going to build on these things. You know yourself, right? We don't need to go to research is good. Don't get me wrong, but as a recovering academic, I'm trying to get people to focus on what were the things that made their moments great and their performance awesome. So we hear things, and look at that. If you're checking out the chat, that's awesome. You can see some of the things that we've got here on the PowerPoint. They're reflecting the PowerPoint, right, in the presentation, right? And look at all the people. Oh, there's so many people here. Thank you for coming here. I'm so excited that you're here. Check out the chat and check out this slide, right? We hear things like regular check-ins. We hear things, like shared values. We hear things, constructive feedback. Look at it. There's so many commonalities, like visible success, growth, opportunities to grow, encouragement. How about the vision, shared values, trust and candor? Thank you, Aaron. I love it. You're all here. Absolutely. So what's really cool about Brivia, what we love to do, and it's so good to see some of our partners here today, is that we love to make things simple. So I'm going to share something. I'm pumped. I wake up excited, but I'm more excited when you're here. And I'm going to share something I haven't shared publicly outside of private presentations. And one of the things we like to do at Brivia is make the complex really simple, like just dial it down, right? And one of the things that we use at Brivia, it's guided by a model called the core algorithm, which we are going to share in its entirety in the fall 2024 with the Getting to Better book. So I want to share with you, for the purpose of this discussion, I want to share with you, and this is being recorded, by the way. So if you're, I know I see a couple of people in the chat, I know who they are, and I know they like to take notes, and I just want to remind you, this is going to be sent to you, okay? So I want to share with you for the first time, what makes great, right? So from the algorithm that we use, we talk about these core essentials. Now, you've heard the words before, so the words are not going to be a surprise to you. But at the very heart of the model are three things we call the core essentials, which are the things that make our experiences great. Now, you can line them up with your own experience. You can line them up with this in the chat, and you can line them up with what was on the last slide. One of the things that we know about these three things is that we as humans need them. They're core essentials. So they're not like needs, they're requirements. And I know I said I was going to keep it simple, so let's keep it simple. What are the three things that humans need to perform optimally? Well, the first thing is connection. I'm going to put all three of them up. We call them connection, clarity, and a sense of control. Okay, so connection, right? So some of our partners, you've heard me talk about these core essentials, right? Human beings, what is it? Human connection? Absolutely. It's about relationships. It's about respect. It's about that sense of caring and trust. And look in the chat, everybody's kind of commented on that. Right? It's about that bond, that sense of belonging, right? It's about feeling like you have value and that you're valued and like, here we go, like you matter, right? That's connection. So if you look at the chat, you can connect it to your own experience when you were performing. No doubt, many of you in here felt a strong sense of connection to yourself, to the work, to the people. Let's move on to clarity. What's clarity? Well, it's exactly that. You're clear. This is about direction and purpose. Or this is about clear objectives, tasks, expectations, roles, responsibilities. More importantly, it's about predictability, right? We know what's happening next. There's not as many surprises. We can anticipate. We can rely on people. That is clarity, right? And as humans, when we're experiencing that, we're doing really well. Now, control. Now, I got some people, we talk to people, they go, control, Steve, that's a bit of a harsh word. And, I don't really need control. Now, let's clarify. What we mean by control is a personal sense of agency. That sense that you can influence yourself, the environment, the people, the work. So that's what control is. Now, if you're somebody who isn't comfortable with the word control, we like to interchange it with confidence, okay? So when we're feeling connected, when we're clear, and we have a personal sense of agency, we're confident. And when we're experiencing that, we are performing on all cylinders, right? So those are the core essentials. So what's really neat about our work now, I said it was simple, You know, we're going to try to keep it simple. But what we want to do right now, and I want to see your comments in the chat, keep it coming, because I'm going to list 8 things. Now, it was really hard preparing for this webinar with the team because we had 100 things that we thought needed to be considered, but we're only going to talk about 8 of them. We're going to talk about their implications. There's going to be a little bit of a dip, but we're going to come out of that with hope and optimism and some great strategies. But what we want to do is line up these core essentials and everything that you've already put in the chat: adequate training, support, encouragement, rewards. We're going to line up those things which create connection, clarity, control, and line them up against many approaches to performance management. Okay. So let's have an honest conversation. Now, I want to see in the chat or ask questions, comments. I want to hear what you think of this. And that means you can agree with it, you can disagree, you can have a different perspective. Let's create a conversation. What I love in our webinars is when I see people in the chat chatting with each other, right? And having a conversation. So let's get going. What are some of these things that are common? Well, one of the biggest ones is that they happen annually or biannually. Performance management approaches often, you know, this doesn't allow consistency. Lots of time passes, right? I want to hear what you think about this. There's a miss on real-time conversations, like, and a miss on building relationships, right? And what this does is it undermines connection and undermines clarity, and it undermines these opportunities to evaluate or encourage and provide feedback. I don't know about you, but for me, I remember when I had an annual performance, I couldn't remember what it was. It was like, oh yeah, we had to work on this. Okay, great reminder. What does that mean for the last 12 months, right? So this compromises clarity and misses opportunities to build consistency and confidence. What else? Now I want to see it in the chat. What are your thoughts on this, right? Is this your experience, right? Do they happen more than biannually? Or do they happen more regularly? The second one is objectives have often been set by the company, right? They're often set by the leader or the company. So performance objectives set like this can often lead to a lack of clarity and connection, right? The goals can feel like they've been imposed or prescribed, right? And it also undermines a sense of feeling like you're involved, right? So one of the things that creates our performance, right? Our performance levels, our motivation, our excitement is the fact that they're meaningful. We've had a part in them. It always amazed me that many of the goals that employees are working towards in terms of their performance have been set by the leader or by the company, right? And people are more likely to perform at higher levels. You know yourself, right? When we feel a sense of ownership over the goals that we're striving for. So that's number 2. Number 3, I don't see anything in the chat yet. It was tons of people. There we go. I love it. I love it. There we go. Here we go. There's the chat. Awesome. Wow, this is cool. Sad, but cool. Awesome. Hey, by the way, there's my dad, everybody. My dad's here. I love it. All right. So number 3. This is more common than not, and performance objectives are often not clearly defined, right? Or they're changing, right? They're moving targets. Many performance objectives are vague and arbitrary, ill-defined, right? 2 of the most recent I heard, what was your performance goal? Better attitude, and the other one was improved quality. Improved quality. Okay, so nothing kills confidence faster than a lack of clarity. Vagueness or unpredictability are confidence killers, right? I talked to a sales rep, a brand new sales rep the other day. I've been talking to hundreds of people gearing up to this webinar. Brivia has been out with our partners out in the community. And I was talking to a salesperson, and he's fairly new. I said, tell me about your goal objectives. And he said, oh yeah, they're really ambitious. He goes, you know, I don't mind ambitious goals, because he's very competitive. And I said, okay, but there's some hesitations. He goes, but when they keep changing, I can't deal. That's what he said. I can't deal. Right. What's number 4? All right. Look at the chat. Right. Look at this. I love it. Right. Mindset is the new buzz. Right. Look at this. Great conversations happening. Right. Awesome. 20-year, 10-year. Wow. Okay. So let's get back to this. A lack of formal process for encouragement and recognition. Now, we've been trying to demystify this thing about recognition and rewards. Rewards, not so much recognition, focusing on strengths, powerful force of meaning and motivation, strengthens connection to the work, strengthens connection to the relationships, right? They also, recognition also keeps us on track. It provides clarity, like, way to go. What? Way to go for hitting that target, for following through on the client, for getting those measurements. Like, it's very clear when we're not recognizing things, we're not sure if we're on track. The signs aren't there. The recognition isn't there. Right. And here's some cool things happening in the chat. Look at this. So we have a cool kudos corner where we recognize teamwork on a daily, weekly basis, come together as a team to share. That is awesome, right? So remember, this is common approaches to performance management. Now, if you're doing it awesome, we'd love to hear about it, right? And most performance managers, I'm going to get to why they've been set up in the way that they're set up. And a lot of it has been unintentional. And a lot of it is we just went off track and we can get back on track. So performance management evaluations or measures, they often focus on missed or like hit or missed targets. And mostly it's the second thing, right? It's the missed targets, mostly the latter. Very rare is there a focus on strengths. Very rare is it, do we focus on the efforts and the accomplishments that were the contributions that were made, right? And what's really, really important about this in the book, the first book that I wrote, and the second one that I'm writing is that strengths are one of the most powerful forces of optimal performance, meaning and motivation, and we don't focus on them enough. And I love to hear it in the chat and throw some, if you got some specific questions for me, I might miss them in the chat because of all of the action. So put them in the Q&A area, which I check periodically. Nothing in there yet, so that I can get to those questions, right? And some of the questions bring us to the best training moments. So let's get to number 5. You ready for this, folks? Right? Often performance objectives and goals are not even remotely tied, if at all, to the vision, to the mission, even to the strategy, right? Why is that important? Well, one of the most legitimate questions to ask as an employee is, what's the point of this? Right? Especially when we lose motivation, right? Why am I doing this? And if there is no answer to that, no clarity or connection to the vision of the mission, it loses its motivation. We lose our focus. We can lose our level of commitment. And what fails after that, if you've been to our other webinars, probably our effort, right? And then we have a performance issue. So let's talk about number 6, right? Well, what about alignment to the company values? Our work demonstrates that values are the most powerful force of meaning and motivation. So what does it do? It reinforces connection to what's important. This is a huge miss. It also provides clarity because it reinforces the question, what's the point? But why is what we're doing so important? Well, it's about people. It's about health. It's about community. It's about integrity. It's about, right? So what it not only reinforces how, right, we should behave with each other, right? It also is a key to optimizing our performance. Okay. Now I did say there's going to be a dip. Okay. I want everybody to brace themselves. Okay. Brace yourselves for this. All right. It's even in the slide. We're going to get to number 8. Okay. We're going to get to number 8, but I want you just to brace yourselves a little bit, because there's a mechanism that is built into almost every performance management approach. And more often than not, okay, and I'm open to hearing your thoughts on this, it can undermine our human innate ability to perform optimally. And in many cases, it undermines connection, clarity, and a sense of control. You ready for this? Some of you already know. Here we go. It's the PIP, also known as the Performance Improvement Plan. I see some great questions coming in. I'm going to get to them. Awesome. So I'm going to slow myself down here, right? I'm going to slow it down because I want to be respectful. I have some strong feelings about the PIP. For 8 years, I toured Canada and Australia, working with some of the most difficult performance and behavioral cases you can imagine. And I intervened in a lot of PIPs. Now, what are the common issues? What makes what started out as a positive thing, performance improvement plan, become so negative? Well, let's start with, and I'm going to list these fairly quickly. Often they're reactive, they're not proactive. In many cases, the behavior that we're concerned about has been permitted or has persisted for a long time before a PIP is initiated. Sometimes it comes as a surprise, right? Many people feel that are on a PIP feel targeted, they feel singled out. There's a real stigma with being on a performance improvement plan. The person's experience is also rarely considered from their perspective, right? One of the most common things I heard was HR's perspective, the manager's perspective. And when we tried to get the employee's perspective, there was a lot of questions around, whether they were lying or whether they're being honest, right? So there's some really cool things in the chat, right? Let's have, like I see Leona saying that they come too late. I also see other people talking about performance conversations and whether they're successful or not. Let's keep this going. Often the behavior being PIP'd is vague, arbitrary, or not even defined in concrete measurable terms. Now, I'm not going to call anybody out here, but I toured the last couple months with people in the community focusing on performance improvement goals. And here's some of the things that I wrote down from my last tour. Unwilling, poor attitude, not quality, low effort, poor communication. And I'm not being facetious, and I'm not leaving anything out. Those were the performance goals that people were striving for. As a matter of fact, a year and a half ago, I helped an HR team with a situation, and the person that was on the PIP asked a very legitimate question after about a year. When am I done this? Right? And if you think about poor, vague, arbitrary set goals, we never know when we accomplish them, right? Path to improving, and also the path to improving those goals is also vague and arbitrary, okay? Unfortunately, often the level of support, and this is something that's been common, usually communication should go up, support should go up, encouragement should going up during the PIP process, but unintentionally and unfortunately it goes down. People avoid talking to the person on the PIP, right? We also, and I have to be honest here, and I'm going to be very respectful, most of the common metaphors used around a PIP are things like feed it to them. You know, there has to be a sting to get the message. No pain, no gain. Turn up the heat, tighten the screws, give them some rope so they can, right? And I'm trying to just be a bit calm here, but most metaphors, right, that are attached to a performance improvement process or to an experience, very few of them are positive. So therefore, it might feel like discipline, right, versus development. They do not feel good, right? You don't meet many people running excited to their performance improvement meeting. And to be honest, in many cases, the PIP, right, is being used as a mechanism to fire somebody or get rid of them. And there's a reason why most people on PIPs, research is showing this, don't make it through. Now, the common response is, well, of course, because it was a poor fit. But what we're talking about, what we see is if we do some of the things we're going to suggest, we can avoid the need for a PIP altogether. So what's interesting about this is that most performance management approaches and also the PIP mechanism, we're going to get to one more thing, number 8, and then we're going to open it up to your questions. We've already got some in here, right? And if you're feeling a little bit of guilt and shame, during this, because I used approaches that were developed for me. I did what I learned. I had a sense of control that I was doing the right thing at the time, right? And we're going to get back to, can we align it? There's a very important question that everybody can leave here with today to start the assessment out around the alignment that we need for optimizing the performance of the people that we bring on. So here's the thing about the most performance management approaches is unintentionally and unfortunately, and especially the PIP approach to most performance, is that it not only undermines connection, clarity, and a sense of confidence, it can actually obliterate it. Now, if you're thinking just about people right now, I also want you to think about it's not just for the person. It actually affects the whole team and can affect the whole organization, because sometimes it sends a subtle message or a shock wave through the team and through the organization with a message of, this is how we deal with people who are struggling with their performance. So there are 8, considerations here. And number 8, so we're out of the dip. Let's get back into the good stuff. And let's start with some really good news here, okay? This is, I sit back and I wonder, like many of you here, and thanks for being here, how did we go so far off track, right? How did something so amazing turn into something so not so great? And I think one of the reasons, if you do the research and you look back to what performance management was originally about, is it's not about the people. Now that sounds terrible, but that's really good news. It's not about the people, it's about performance, right? More importantly, it's about monitoring and maintaining performance to meet a preset of objectives and targets that have been set for the company, for the company's success. That's why I believe, in Brivia, we believe that we've been off track for so long, because it's never really been about the people. See, performance development, and that's one of the things we're encouraging our partners to say, let's start with the name. Let's leave performance management, which is about monitoring and maintaining, right? behind and move to performance development, because performance development is about company success. It is about client success. It is about all of this stuff that we're talking about, but it's by developing the employee's capacity and capability. It's about development to support, to enhance their skills, to develop their potential, all the stuff that every single person here I know wakes up to do for themselves and the people that they're responsible for, to help them learn, to help them grow, and to help them improve over time. Right. And one of the things I want to step back and say, we've got to look at the incongruences. Right. Sometimes if we say we believe in continuous improvement, yet we're just monitoring and maintaining. We say we believe in strengths, yet we don't focus on strengths in our performance management approach or in our PIP approach. We've got to take a serious look at what we're doing. So here, let's do what can we consider? Let's get into the solutions. Okay. Actually, as a matter of fact, I'm going to go with I'm going to hit the question before we get into some of the solutions here. So a great question. How can we encourage or motivate staff to create their own professional goals? Sometimes we see hesitancy or uncertainty for self-identified goals. Such a great question, Chantel. That was an amazing question. Why is that? Because we haven't done it for very often. One of the hardest questions to answer for most people is, what are you good at, for starters? Never mind what is your goal, but where have you succeeded already? And one of the reasons that that's hard is because we often have been taught to focus on what's missing, the deficit, the weakness, the risk, the performance problem. So we have the ability to set goals. So the hesitancy and the reluctance, and I love that you use the word hesitancy in your question, because that's what it is. It's apprehension. We often hear, so-and-so is resistant about setting their goals. Wait a minute, that's an assumption. Are they having difficulty? So we've got to create a space, Chantel. We've got to create a space where, and I'm going to get into when does that start, but create a space where we talk about what's important to them. What do they need to feel good about work? What do they value, right? They might say, I value collaboration. Good. Well, maybe we build a goal around working with some of the other teams cross-functionally, right? We have got to create an environment where we go from feeling uncomfortable to comfortable by flexing and building the muscles that we have to do these things. Great question. If I didn't answer it, throw it in the chat. I'm doing that's my answer right now. There's another question. I'm going to come to it in just a little bit, right? Thank you for that incredible question. So what can we do? What can we rethink? Well, let's start with shifting from performance management to performance development, right? Just as a start, but a rose by any other name is still a rose. So we got to start there, right? We got to make it about people development, people performance development. And people say, well, Steve, it's just a name. I toured in the early 2000s, late 1990s. I'm a little bit older than most. And I was developing what we called a strengths-based approach to practice for kids in mental health and child welfare and stuff like that. And I had to change the name to relationship-based strengths approach. And somebody said, well, why did you change the name? I said, because if we didn't put relationship in there, we assumed that it was happening, but that was the biggest part that was missing. So we got to claim it. If we don't name it, we can't claim it. Make it proactive, right? People say, well, what does that mean? Early on, initiate development and make it ongoing, like weekly. We have tools that help people check in weekly, and it doesn't take a lot of work if we've got the right tools for it. But here's the thing. Someone asked me the other day, well, how early do you start performance development? And this is related to Chantel's question almost. How about at recruitment? Like when that young person comes to the table to your at the work fair and you say to them, hey, what brought you to this table? What aspect of your capacity do you want to develop at our company? Like, whoa, right? Start there. Don't start when they're on probation or after probation. And I'm not going to talk about probation today. We'll save that for another one. The other one is, right, do it with all employees, not just the ones who are struggling. Everybody gets a development plan. Everybody, gets to focus on what capacities do they want to strengthen. The other one is make it meaningful. One of the things we focus on huge at Brivia and with our partners and some of the other things that we're doing. And by the way, before I forget, at the question and answer period, I want you to, if you want to stay involved, we're going to create a Getting to Better community where we can do more of this stuff together. It's going to be a free platform. So stay tuned, sign up for the newsletter, right? Because we want to show you how to make things meaningful. You'll see in the parentheses there, NVGS, and that means needs, values, goals, and strengths. How do we align our objectives for the company with our employees needs, values, goals, and strengths, right? And it isn't as hard as we think. And as a matter of fact, we can do it with almost everybody. We said 8 things today, right? Have the goals developed by the person with their leader. Make connections between performance development and the mission and the strategy of the organization. Remember, employees are going to ask the question, what's the point of this? Why am I doing this? And if you have them connected, it's going to elevate their level of development, their level of motivation, their level of growth, right? Awesome. I love it. Great things in the chat. Make sure there's an alignment to the vision and values, right? And one of the things we want to do is just strive to make them positive, strive to make them meaningful, strive to make them valuable. Is this valuable? So we got some more questions coming. I'm going to open it up. But before we open it up to questions and comments, I got another question in the question and answer area. Here's the question before we get into discussion. It's 11:30. We've got about 10 to 15 minutes left, right? Is we all can answer this question. It's not about blaming. It's not about shaming. It's not about gaming. Everyone can ask this question, which is, if we want to rethink our performance management approach, it starts with just one simple question. And that question is, does our approach to performance management align with the experience we want for the people we invite to work with us? Right? And yeah, we purposely use the word invite at Brivia, because I think sometimes we lose sight that we've invited people, we've asked them to join us, to work with us, to make a contribution, to be a part of something. And unintentionally and unfortunately, when they start to struggle, or even before that, our approach undermines their motivation, undermines their confidence, undermines their sense of connection and clarity. So I love this question because we can answer it with a simple yes, maybe, or no. And if the answer is maybe or no, then we got to get to work, right? Where's the quick wins? So here's a great question. So I want to open it up to questions. So I'm going to you put them in the chat, put them into the question and answer. You can, send me a chat if you want to come on off mute and you want to have a conversation. I've got lots of more suggestions coming at you. So here's a question. How do we develop a simple and clear training form for interviews? So how do we develop a simple and clear training form for interviews? Well, we have several of them, but you can start with this, right? So if you want to develop your own interview form, just start with what are the things you want to have employees focus on day to day, right? One of the things we encourage is number one, the top of the form is a personal check-in before business, right? Which is just, how are you doing personally and professionally? It doesn't have to take a whole hour. It could even take 5 minutes. Next bullet on most of our forms are what's going well. We want to ask the employee to be constantly focused on what's going well. Where are they succeeding? Where are they having feeling excited about what's going well, and what are they doing to contribute to that? The other thing that we do is we make sure that almost all forms have the values of the company, either on the header or the footer, everywhere. And we ask people, how are you living the values this week? Or how are one or more of our values, right, either supporting or reinforcing your work, or are you living them? The other thing that we do is the next bullet is we have them check in on their goals. So the one that Chantel has already set some goals. We've got our company goals. You've always got company goals, right? I need you to improve on client interaction. I need you to get this documentation done. We've got all those performance goals. But in the very beginning, and if you haven't done this yet, you can stop at any point and say, hey, what do you want to develop? What can we help you with so that we can develop your capacity, not only to be better in this job, but better in other areas of the company, or maybe when you decide to move on or move up. Okay, so you focus on their goals. You focus on their specific, and this is the other thing. When you're doing quick check-ins, you don't have to check in on all of them. You can cycle through them. If you're meeting regularly, everything isn't always a hot item. And there's usually one or two things that we want them to be working on or that they need to be working on. Where else do we go in this form? Well, I think I'm at maybe the 5th bullet, and we ask This is one of my favorite questions, is after we talk about all the things that they're doing well, is there anything that you're struggling with, or is there anything that you're worried about? Okay, so that's about bullet number 6. Okay, so I hope this is helpful from this anonymous question, right? And you should be on the slide rethinking. So this is, I'm just answering a question. So I don't have slides for this. You may have to back up. I hope that's the slide that you're on, Kim. Do you see the rethinking performance? Great question, right? So bullet number 6 is, do you have any concerns? And is there anything that you're worried about? And why I love the placement of that question there, remember we follow an algorithm, is because you've created an openness that's meaningful, where it's easy to say, yeah, you know, something I'm worried about. And sometimes we hear something that we weren't aware of, right? Or I'm concerned about this. And thanks for this anonymous question, because here comes the final bullet, and it is always the final bullet on the regular performance check-ins. And it's 2 questions. Is there anything that you need from me to be successful, or how can I help? So if you want to rewind the recording, I think I just outlined many kind of a template for many of the performance check-ins that we use. Of course, we tailor them to the realities of the workplace and to the realities of the interaction of the leader and the people that they're working with. I hope you found that helpful. Are there any other questions? I've got a couple other ones. I got one that was sent to me privately about the need for CYA, covering your, maybe CYB, covering your butt. So there's a common question that we do get around, well, you know, you need to have something in place. Like you cannot let somebody go, or you're going to get into legal trouble. And I want to be careful here, because it's one of those things that yes, that's a fact. However, one of the things that we have seen over the years is that even in cases where people have used it as a mechanism to demonstrate that they've done their due diligence to let someone go. I worked with arbitrating lawyers for almost 6 years, where they would see that a lack of focus on strengths and a lack of regular check-ins and a lack of feedback really led to a reconsideration and a resetting of the performance probation period. And this created all sorts of other troubles, right? One of the things that we do see at our work at Brivia, and we support teams to do this, is that we help you develop, look at your performance management approach, and we look at what kinds of mechanisms are working and which ones can you put in place to make it more efficient, to make it more effective. Because the thing we know about covering your butt, right? Like, you know, if you're working to cover your butt, you really can't do any work because your hands are occupied. But when you're doing really good work, there's no need to cover your butt when it comes to performance development. Okay, the other thing I want to say, oh, there's another great question in there. Holly, awesome. Thank you. I'm going to come to that right away. One of the things that we do know is that what we're talking about here requires a conversation, right? Because I know there are people that are sitting here, right? Going, okay, well, where do we start and who do we talk to? One of the things that we love to do at Brivia is equip people with core communication and core performance conversations to not only be able to motivate and engage, but to hang in there confidently when you get to conflict and when you get to behavior issues. Okay. And I love what Steve has said in the chat. Thanks, Steve. It's great to see you here again. It's a very empty question, right? When asked in a lot of cases. And that's the important piece, is genuineness, right? And one of my favorite lines from the late Gord Downie, tragically hit, I posted this on LinkedIn. Even babies raised by wolves know exactly when they've been used, right? So if we're not genuine, if we're just going through the motions, people are going to sense that. It's going to undermine connection. It's going to undermine their confidence. And this is what happens. The reason why those 3 the core essentials are so critical is that once they're compromised, think about your own performance. Do you remember that time you weren't feeling connected? You weren't feeling trust, respected, like you mattered? How did that affect your performance? Do you remember that time that you weren't clear, right? You weren't clear, you're stutter stepping, you're hiding, you're holding back. How did that affect your performance? It crushed your confidence. Maybe you faked it for a while, but it's going to affect your performance. And if you're being managed, because performance management is about the behavior, it's not about the person. So if I see Steve or Leona or Brenda or Holly struggling, and I wasn't trained to tune into the people performance, and I'm only trained to make assumptions and evaluate what I see, well, we're one step closer to a PIP, aren't we? Because that's the mechanism I've been given. So Holly, great question. Let's look at this. How do you know How do you approach a PIP conversation when you've noticed the person's mental health has declined and it is affecting interpersonal relationships and teamwork? So great question, Holly. I want to back up a bit. So we got to be, it's a great question, right? Before we get to whether it's mental health issues, what do we know about this? And this is the concerns we have from this person's perspective. Now, it may or may not be mental health, right? We may have noticed, and this is what we're teaching a lot of our clients. What is the concrete behavior that we're concerned about? Because once we say this is a mental health issue, whoa, it is a big thing, right? So first of all, what are the behaviors that we see have changed, Holly? Right? Is it late to work? Is it wearing clothes that are look like they've slept in? Is it a level of energy? Is it, what are the concrete things that we can say that we notice these things have changed? Okay, as a starting point. The other thing we'd like to do is be very careful around whether it's mental health being declined. Let the person tell us what it is. If you're right, it's affecting interpersonal relationships and teamwork. Again, what behavior are we concerned about? So we've created this really cool thing called BLIPGO, which we follow, which is the behavior, the lead with strengths, and the impact. So one of the things I would suggest, Holly, is if you're dealing with somebody whose performance has dipped, right? We have a conversation first about their strengths, right? What they're good at, what they're still contributing, what we want to recognize. We want to preserve their dignity, integrity, affirm and validate that they're more than this dip. And then we want to talk about the behavior in concrete terms and share the impact it's having. A lot of people don't know the impact our behavior is having on people for a couple of reasons. One, a lack of self-awareness, and two, nobody has told us. So be gentle and share the impact. And the fourth step, Holly, is ask their perspective. And what I mean by that is I can say, hey, Jeremy, this is what I'm seeing. You're awesome. You're amazing. These are the behaviors I'm concerned about. You've been late for the meetings. Your hair is still wet and dripping when you come in. You're huffing and puffing, right? So there's very concrete signs, but that's how I see it, Jeremy. I want to hear your perspective. How are you doing? Right. And this is the really cool moment where I learned something for the very first time about the person's experience that I didn't know was operating. Is it mental health? Is it a sick mom? Is it kids that he's having difficulty getting to school because he didn't want to say that he's had foster care, and a sick child because he's waiting until his benefits kick in? What do we really know about this from his perspective? Holly, I hope that was helpful. What an incredible question, right? Awesome question, right? Oh, I used Jeremy as a name and I see there's a Jeremy here. It wasn't that Jeremy. I love what Jeremy's saying. Focusing on behavior versus the person is very key. Thank you. Well, no, thank you. Right? Managers often struggle with employees and patterns. You're absolutely right, Jeremy. Right? Here's the thing, though, folks. I want to say something really clear, and I know we got 3 minutes left. So if you got more questions, keep it coming. I always get a little bit dysregulated. I want to say before you go, stay on if you can to the last minute. Sign up for the newsletter if you can. I've got two more big pieces of advice I think that were helpful that Jeremy just stimulated. The Getting to Better community is coming. Oh my gosh, we've been waiting years to build a community that's a free platform, a public place for us to do this, to do more of this, to share our knowledge, to share practical application, to have spaces where you can even practice some of the programs that we deliver. So here we go. Jeremy, you're absolutely right. And the chat is so amazing. I'm going to print this off and read this. Leaders are amazing. Okay. And leadership is a practice. And I say this often. Leaders are people. Leadership is a practice. Okay. Why is this important? Because leaders get up and tend to do something. Their practice needs some work. That's it. Here's the thing about people and performance. People are amazing. Performance is a practice. So as Jeremy's saying, we got to be good to people. We got to be healthy on people, hard on practice. We got to separate the person. Because everybody here, I'm going to leave you with this. Everybody here, we've struggled with our performance. We have struggled at some point. We wanted to perform more than we could, more than we wanted to. Somehow something was getting in the way. And you remember how that felt. And what you needed more than anything was connection. What you needed more than anything was clarity. What you needed more than anything was somebody to support, develop, nurture, encourage your confidence. And for some of us, because I've been on a PIP 3 times in my career, That's for another time. We also know what it felt when the approach went against what we needed. And everybody here, we're all trying to do the best thing. We get up to succeed. We want the best for our people. So at Brivia, we love to help. If you'd like us to help, we know you're good at what you do. We're good at what we do, and we'd love to get to better together. So I know it's 45 minutes, close to, it's one more minute left. I just want to say thank you to the Brivia team for making me better. I want to say thank you to everybody who showed up here today. And I appreciate and want to acknowledge the courage it takes to step back and ask if we're doing what we say we're doing. And all we can do every day is get up and get a little bit better. So have a great day, everybody. Thanks for showing up. The recording will come to you. Stay in touch. And I look forward to seeing you all again. Take care, everybody. So great to see you. Have a great day.